Some of Chavez's programs could have been sustainable if he pursued a sound economic policy.
You said the word of the day! If! That's the whole theme of this. If. But what about is? Question of the day. Would love to hear your feedback. What example would you use if you're an advocate for socialism, for successful long-term socialism? To which country would you point? I'm curious because John Oliver released this video, as we talked about, the Venezuela video here, and he talks about how important it is. And there's nothing new here. It really does. And I really want you to go watch the entire video. What is it, about 19 minutes?
19 minutes.
It's about 19 minutes. I encourage you to watch the entire context. We're going to try to do our best to get to the factual information presented. And there's less and less with each John Oliver video. Let's go, clip A.
It has been hard to keep up with events in Venezuela due to the hurricane of that we've all been dealing with here. Although, if you follow conservative media at all, you may have seen it frequently painted as the inevitable, dire consequences of a socialist government. For a case in point, just watch this InfoWars reporter quizzing an extremely chill Bernie Sanders supporter.
Well, you know
Leading
Venezuela,
the witness,
right?
Your Honor.
Heard of it.
A majority of the country is currently eating rats while their politicians are drinking champagne on a daily basis. If Bernie Sanders were president, right, and he wanted to bring the same ideas as for socialism into this country,
Why is she dressed like Donald Duck?
do you think that we would benefit?
Yeah.
But I just told you Venezuela's eating rats.
Duck screwed Sailor Moon.
But I just want people to have health care, honey. I don't want, like...
Well,
Same thing Hugo Chavez.
You people have, like, worms in your brain, honestly.
What you do have there is a nice distillation of the current level of political discourse in America. Two people who don't really know what they're talking about, condescending to each other nonsensically until one of them lands a sick burn.
Here's the thing, I actually agree with almost everything he just said, except for the sick burn part. And that's what's important here. We're going to get to the examples, the data, the facts, and all of our sources in a minute. But if you think, I just want free healthcare, you people have worms in your head, is a sick burn, no facts, data, or analysis thereafter in this piece here can convince you. All right? I just want to make sure, because we just have to, we disagree at that point. By the way, it's a classic straw man, where he sits there and talks about two people who have no idea what they're talking about. If it's so lowbrow, why did you choose this example? You could have taken an example of Noam Chomsky and Sam Harris talking about socialism. You could have picked any example. This is what you picked.
But what is happening in Venezuela is not just extremely important, it is absolutely worth paying attention to, because this is not just a story about socialism. There are plenty of socialist countries that look nothing like Venezuela. It's a story about epic mismanagement.
But you repeat yourself. See, the entire criticism of socialism, the entire reason that conservatives, the right wing, whatever you want to call us, oppose a path toward intrusive government is predicated on the idea, the concept, as it were, of mismanagement, for which we are roundly mocked.
It sounds like capitalism is designed to prevent.
Yes, it's almost as though it's designed to prevent it. Now, here's the thing. You don't even have to believe that capitalism is correct to agree with me when I say that conservatives and capitalists fear that socialism, we believe socialism to result in gross mismanagement. Even in the United States, by the way. So socialism or government bureaucracy plus time equals mismanagement, equals failure. See examples in healthcare, social security, education, and banking. John Oliver goes on to say there are plenty of socialist nations, or he said it in that clip, I think, that look different from Venezuela, implying success. Now, I thought, and we've talked about, I thought he was going to point to the Nordic model, as so many leftists do. He didn't even attempt to do that.
For a little while, it looks like it's working, until you run out of people's money.
Until the Danish Prime Minister says, we're not socialists. Bernie Sanders, please shut up. You can call it democratic socialism, you can call it national socialism. There is no good socialism. That's the only constant. And it always results in mismanagement. Let's see.
And I've said this before when we've covered what's going on in Venezuela. It is not one thing. It is not just the fact that it's a socialist country. It is a number of factors that played a role in the economic downfall of the country.
But I'm not saying that we all want to live in communist, or the Soviet Union or China. Terrible, terrible things happen there. But that's what we always revert to. We say, well, is it not possible that we could, for a start, they didn't do it properly. They ignored it.
That's what everybody says, but no one's ever done it properly.
Sick burn. So they inevitably point you to the next brand of socialism, which will work, or the next leader who will do it better. That's why we've seen all of our current leftist leaders, and I'm not talking about extremists, I'm talking about your political leaders.
Your favorites.
The platform.
Your all-stars.
The platform representatives for the DNC praising all the previous socialist and communist dictators who ended up being awful, terrible people.
Fidel Castro. They had forgotten that he educated their kids, gave them health care, totally transformed the society.
It would be wrong not to state that in Cuba they have made some good advances in health care.
They are sending doctors all over the world.
Band-Aids.
They have made some progress in education.
They can send doctors wherever they want, right? If people don't want the doctors, it's like I could go to the Tokyo Superdome. I could say I performed at the Tokyo Superdome, but I didn't sell it out. I didn't sell out 80,000. They're sending doctors to the United States. Yeah, on rafts, and the raft is this desk chair.
They're trying to get out of there.
And you saw, of course, we have the B-roll here of Obama in front of Che and the whole revolution there where he was sitting. It's just like, oh my gosh, let's be reverent to a man who said before the UN that they would execute without trial. And by the way, hated black people, thought they were lazy and deserving of death. Again, you look back, they were praising all these socialist leaders, right? And people, well, those are, we're talking about Castro. But matter of fact, guess who found himself amongst their figureheads worthy of praise? And his country. Is it possible?
Maybe.
He is one of the most important forces we've had on this planet. From my very American point of view, of my friend, President Chavez, it is only possible to be so inspiring as he is.
You know, it's funny, sometimes American journalists talk about how bad a country is because people are lining up for food. That's a good thing.
It's funny, we write these shows every day and we sit down and when you really put it on a time like this, it's even more damning than I thought. Yeah. They try and distance themselves from the results. Yeah. Right? That's what happens. Here's the thing. Bernie Sanders didn't come out and say, I was wrong about bread lines. It turns out there's not free next day shipping. He didn't say anything. He just goes
I was a prime member.
That guy's an asshole. Yeah, exactly. He didn't do it like I would. Yeah. But I still believe in it. He didn't have a flash of genius moment. He's still a socialist. You just slapped Democratic in front of it. And by the way, they've praised these people. This is, again, mainstream leftism. Please go watch the whole video. You can go back and find clips of John Oliver saying things to the same effect. So much, it's so embarrassing that John Oliver himself even has to hedge his bets in his own video in acknowledging how much the left kind of loved Chavez.
To be fair to Chavez, many of his social programs were initially effective. During his tenure, the poverty rate was nearly halved. And to this day, many Venezuelans revere Chavez to a dramatic degree.
Halved. Okay. Let's go. Poverty halved. Well, it's easy to cut poverty in half when you use taxpayer dollars and cease production.
Just for a little while?
If you just take all of the monies and all of the things, and you know what? You could also completely eliminate unemployment if you forced everyone to dig ditches with spoons.
You could.
It doesn't mean it's a real economy.
Yeah, that's a
bad idea. Gets propped up. North Korea did the same thing. Forced labor only works for so long before you fall off the edge. And you had a point about that, right, Sven?
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't have oil, you know, they would have had to build a wall around their country and starve their own people, so they don't know how good it is outside a long time ago.
Exactly. That's what happened.
Wait, that's like what they did.
And you know what's crazy? The left is never called out on this crap. This is the problem with socialism. It's like one of those things you get the dollars with like a bar of soap. It's one of those party tricks that keep slipping through your hands. They're never called out. Joe Biden was talking about having meetings. Remember when he was running as vice president with people he never met? Diners that didn't even exist. Right? Remember the BP oil spill? Left Lemon Ann to talk about this afterwards, to talk about the $18 billion lawsuit that occurred versus Chevron, which turned out to be fraudulent. They never get called on this crap because George W. Bush said nuclear. Because President Donald Trump has a bad comb over. You guys were all praising Venezuela for years. Yeah. For years. We can show we only have so much time on the show, and you were wrong. You're always wrong. And the media never call. How nice it must be to never be. I've been just yesterday in supporting the embassy called out for apparently taking shekels from Jews in Illuminati meetings. No one's gonna call any of these people out on praising Chavez and breadlines in Venezuela. The left is always wrong. And I'm saying that in absolutist, yes, absolutely, as it relates to socialism, and no one calls them on it. I am amazed. Next clip.
Now, Chavez could act the way that he did because Venezuela was oil rich, and over the course of his presidency, he took more and more state control over their national oil company, enabling him to fund programs benefiting the poor. And when that company protested some of the changes that he was making, he responded by using his TV show to address its executives directly.
Despido. I'm firing the following people. Mr. Juan Fernandez, you are fired from Petroleum of Venezuela. Eddie Ramirez, thank you very much. You are fired.
Also, Mariana Rodriguez, you are not fired, but if you don't stop talking to your boyfriend on speakerphone, you absolutely will be.
On the outset, he's praising it. Yep. Yeah. Watch the full video, the full context, because you'd be like, well, maybe he's going to counterbalance it afterward. He never does. He literally takes an example of I would argue, one of the most horrific displays of socialist authoritarianism, and he never addresses it as horrifying.
Yeah.
Think about it. The words, government took control, the state took control of oil companies, then fired executives, can only generate one of two visceral reactions. Disgust, freedom-loving disgust, or admiration. We're saying the exact same thing. You're saying the state took control of the oil companies and fired executives. I'm thinking the state took control of the oil companies and fired executives. Like I'm saying, listen, you hear this, the state seizing control and firing executives, one of two reactions, all right? Disgust or admiration. Now, this isn't a rebuttal right here, okay? I'm telling you this, we're not going to find common ground. If you hear that and you're okay, if this isn't a rebuttal, it's a litmus test. All right? You have to figure out where you line up. Next clip.
Some of Chavez's programs could have been sustainable if he pursued a sound economic policy and run a tight ship. But not only did he stop saving oil revenues in a rainy day fund, he also oversaw a government that Transparency International found to be the most corrupt country in Latin America.
You said the word of the day! If! That's the whole theme of this. If. But what about is? There is no mention of is. If he ran a tight ship. Ah, yes, the tight ship policy. This didn't work with Venezuela. Okay, if. Now you're taking a big if with countries that aren't rich in oil. They were starting off halfway through the foot race as far as a head start. All Venezuela had to do was not fumble.
It's easy to see why Maduro has pissed people off, because he has managed Venezuela's economic crisis in the worst possible way. He's doubled down on many of Chavez's most unsound policies, like unrealistic currency and price controls, while attempting to make up for missing revenue by simply creating more money. And as a result, inflation has exploded.
The hedging here, he uses a lot of hedge words, is unrealistic. Okay, because remove that, and he just named everything that he likes. Price controls? Democrats. And I'm not just saying liberals, progressives. Democrats, okay, for people out there who are like, I'm a classical liberal. No, you're not. Democrats have actively supported price controls for college. For years. Bernie Sanders calling for price controls on pharmaceuticals. Unrealistic, printing more currency. Printing more currency? Obama's economic philosophy was based on quantitative easing. Look at me. This is from Obama. The Fed's mandate, my mandate, is to grow our economy, and that's not just good for the United States, that's good for the whole world. The worst thing that could happen is the world economy is we end up stuck with no growth. Listen, the left has, look at the Federal Reserve. Understand what that is. Look at people, the most radical right-leaning people, they want to go back to a gold-backed standard, right? This is something that conservatives have been openly mocked for opposing for years. Printing of more cash. It's a fundamental premise of the left, right, as far as Keynesian economics. By the way, I learned Keynesian economics in college. Never once read Adam Smith. Never once read Hayek. Who'd have thought? Maybe John Oliver and I went to the same college. Probably not. All right, next clip.
And those shortages have had some terrible consequences.
Yes.
This food shortage is widespread. Over the last year, 3/4 of the population has lost an average of almost 20 pounds.
Look how fat I used to be. This is how many holes I had to make in my belt on the Maduro diet.
Yes, good for him. The Maduro diet. That is actually now a commonly used phrase in Venezuela. And it's a very healthy-sounding term for a truly horrifying situation.
Well, okay, hold on a second. That guy looks not bad.
He must have been really fat.
Back to picking the wrong examples again.
Yeah.
Well, so starvation. Okay, here's where we can find common ground, right? We all agree starvation is bad. Good, yes. There we go. But why is there starvation? Why are there food shortages? What did the government do with food? Fix the prices. That's textbook social. We just talked about fixing prices. We just talked about the left opposing what they call price gouging, raising the price when there's lower supply. This results in chronic shortages because the price is set too low. He literally, after this, just goes on to make fun of Maduro and attack him for eating an empanada on air. It's a 19-minute video. I highly recommend that you go and watch the entire thing. There's almost no continuation as far as criticism.
It's easy to find. It's at the top of the trending list.
It's at the top of the trending list. As far as continuation of the policies, any criticism. Now, why? Why is there no continued criticism of the policies? It goes on to talk about what a jerk Maduro is. Because the policies are either identical to, obviously, we have Chavez, or far too similar to policies that today's current left supports, including John Oliver. So go watch the video, see for yourself. It's around 19 minutes. I want you to watch it, okay? I want you to come back and comment. I want you to question our sources. I want you to get as much context as humanly possible and make up your own mind. That's what I want you to do. And I see this with John Oliver more and more and more and more. You know, it used to start off where we would have to go through a 12-minute video and go through each source. We scraped this video for every single piece of factual information he presented. There's very, very little. And I don't want to fact check jokes. I don't want to jump on a guy for telling jokes. I think some of the bits in there are funny, but that's not what this was about. This has 3 million plays. It's at the top of trending lists. This is at the front page of HuffPo because people like what he has to say. So we wanted to see what it was that he had to say. And I think that you need to get as much context as possible, make up your mind, because like I said, okay, if you think the statement's like, I just want free healthcare and you have worms in your head, if you think that's a sick burn, or if you're hearing that the state seized control of production and fired executive, if that statement warms your cockles, there's no middle ground for us, okay? This is something important. A lot of people say, oh, we want civility. No, I don't care as much about civility as I do about honesty. And we need to get to the truth. We find common ground. Starving is bad. We find common ground. We don't like poverty. That's great. That's enough common ground. We don't need to act as though we're finding common ground on economic policy that is evil. You see the results time after time after time after time. And you'd think they'd have egg on their face because they praised people who were evil in Castro, in people like Chavez. And I'm pretty sure you could probably find them praising Maduro at some point too. Because, I mean, really, we have clips of them praising bread lines. It's not too far-fetched to say somewhere down the line, Maduro got a pat in the back from Bernie Sanders. So there's no middle ground here. If you just find those statements to be heartwarming, I disagree with you. And that's okay. Let us know. Hey, if you like this video, subscribe or click the notification bell. You should do both anyways because YouTube doesn't notify you if you're just subscribed. You have to hit that notification bell. So if you already are subscribed, hit the notification bell. And if you're not supporting this content, go to louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub. You get the full nightly show, an hour, every day, free, when you subscribe. This hand-etched girthy mug, as well as other programming. And listen, you also get to support Not Gay Jared's Remicade treatment. I don't know what it is. I know it has something because he had ulcerative colitis. It doesn't anymore, thank God, because I removed his colon. And truth be told, it's not working very well anyway.